afternoon and namaskaram to everyone. Chronicles, a venture by UVCGA, is back with a special episode this time. I, Greeshma from first year CSC, along with Adrian from fourth year EC, are interviewing Mr. K. Ramesh Babu, who is from the batch of 1971 UVCE. This is the very first co hosted Chronicles, and personally, it is my first interview as well. So I am slightly nervous about this. I'd like to hand over the mic to Mr. Ramesh Babu. Would you take over and introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, my name is Ramesh Babu. As Greeshma mentioned, I graduated in 1971 from the integrated course BE program. I joined in 1965, so you might wonder what the 6 years are all about. On my way to exam on the first year, I got into an accident and broke my arm, and essentially, therefore, I lost 1 year. So I spent 1 year just with my parents and grandparents, waiting for the next year. So that's the 6 years. I went to the United States not immediately after my BE degree. I did a master's program in Indian Institute of Science in electrical communication engineering. And then, thanks to a Government of India scholarship, I was able to go to the United States and registered for a PhD program in University of Southern California. After that, I've been in Silicon Valley ever since, doing activity that will come up in the next set of questions. And I'm here now because this is my alma mater.
Thank you for the lovely introduction, sir. So can you tell us more about the 6 years you spent at UVC?
Okay. I came to UVC via National College. I got my secondary school done in Holenarsipur. And so the environment was somewhat new, city environment. But the first 2 years were somewhat eventless. I mean, except for the fact that I broke my arm. And it was, however, during the second half of the second year is when I began to realize that although in general my UVC experience is good, I realized that we didn't really get the help we should have gotten, particularly in studying integral calculus, differential calculus, and quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics we didn't study until later, but then those are the three subjects that I wish we all could have had greater help. But anyhow, luckily, it was extremely competitive to get into UVC those days. And so the students that were in our class were either as smart as I am or even smarter. So what we did do, is get together for study sessions to learn these things, the calculus in particular, because, we somehow felt that as engineers, if you don't understand calculus, you're in trouble. Well, maybe these days, computer science, there's not much of calculus, but in those days, engineering required calculus.
Yeah.
So we did study, we learned all of those things by first principles and felt confident that we could deal with any problem that shows up. And so was the case with quantum mechanics. So overall, it was a good 6 years for me, but I did feel now, looking back, there was not enough emphasis on critical thinking. It was more on rote learning. Don't get me wrong, even some of the universities in America might have the same problem, right, even today.
It is a major problem with teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you need to solve the problem the way we solve it. Yeah. Or if I happen to get an opportunity to teach here at UVCE, then you won't have that problem, at least in the subject that I'll teach. Okay. And then there was no sense of preparing you for a career. All the professors were probably so busy doing whatever they did, nobody had time for to sit with you and talk to you about your career. Yeah. Everything happened as it did. So, for example, I mean, a couple of days ago, last week, I think it was, Professor Anganath visited UVCE.
Yeah, he did.
I attended one of his talks.
Okay.
That was an excellent talk that all UVCE students should listen to. I don't know if they recorded it or not, but otherwise they should all talk to the students who attended the lecture.
Yeah.
In particular, what struck me as his emphasis on the importance of learning computers. No matter what your engineering interest is.
Yeah.
Right? Probably it's kind of obvious to you these days, but certainly it was not obvious in those days. There was no internet and so on, right? Yeah. So basically, what I would say is that so UVC did one good thing for us, and that is because of the lack of help from the department regarding career or critical thinking or all of that. We somehow were able to learn the subjects well, and that stood in good stead for us once we left the UVCE. So no matter where we went, I mean, for example, at USC, the first semester I could ace all the classes. It's kind of surprising. I mean, it's so difficult to do that well here. Here, of course, it's very competitive. In India, things are a lot more competitive than outside India, right? So summary then, UVC experience has been valuable. I wish it could have been better, and I certainly wish it will be better for you.
You have a very unusual PhD story. What were the algorithms and techniques, and what was the general area that you worked in?
Okay. Yes. First of all, while I do have an unusual story, I would like you to use an additional adjective there, incomplete. Meaning, even though I was registered for a PhD program, I eventually cut it short. So I don't have the luxury of getting called Dr. Ramesh Babu. That's probably, in the overall scheme of things, probably not very important. But nevertheless, it was a difficult decision that I took to quit PhD in the middle. So, okay, when I left India, I knew only that I wanted to learn more about computers. I didn't know much. But however, there was a professor who joined newly as the head of the department. He's an excellent teacher, Professor Bing Hansen. I don't know if you've heard of that. He used to write books on operating systems and so on. In listening to his lectures, he was a very good lecturer. I crystallized my interest. So if there is one person who crystallized my interest, it is he. Systems programming. Until then, I really didn't understand what system programming was. But he was such a nice teacher that he would argue in front of you why this is right, why this is not right. Stuff like that. Extremely pleasant individual. So, as I finished, master's programs in America, you can easily do without projects. Sometimes you can do projects too, but I chose the one without project because I was going to do a PhD anyway, right? So, and then I went and asked him that I would like to be his PhD student. Now, he had, it turns out that he had somewhat of a, from his experience, somewhat of a negative understanding or negative feeling of Indian students. Okay? he once remarked that they are smart, but he added some other adjective, I don't remember, but not a very flattering adjective.
Right.
By the way, he is no more. Uh, Passed away quite some years ago. So I asked him. He gave me a very, very tough problem, and he said, "You do this, you are my student. You don't do this, you're not." It was that simple, 0 and 1. And the problem that he wanted me to solve is there was a Pascal interpreter that Pascal had a P code intermediate language, right? So he wanted me to implement the P code interpreter on IBM 360, and that needed to be done in a IBM 360 assembly language.
Whoa. Okay.
That seems like a really hard.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
assembly level language, it takes quite a lot of time to
Right.
master.
I didn't really anticipate the magnitude of the problem because my goal was to be his PhD student. Okay, this is the price I have to pay. But then halfway or maybe 1/3 of the way, it was evidently clear to me that I was not going to be able to finish it because I had to do it within a semester, and it was only like while I was doing other classes. This was like another class. That's all. It's just that if I didn't go to a class, I would come to the lab and start worrying about the Pequot interpreter. So then he realized that I was also in trouble. I said, okay. Then he said, okay, we're going to change the project now. He gave me what he considered a simpler project. And the project was the following. The IBM 360 already had a Pascal compiler. But either he or someone else, maybe Nicholas Wirth, I don't remember, defined a subset of Pascal to use as a tool for entry-level computer science students. So in other words, it wouldn't have all the features of Pascal. Many of the strong typing would be there, but many of the other features would not be there. Particularly go-to statements, stuff like that. It was considered, there was a very famous article that Dijkstra wrote, and the title of the article is "Go-to Statements Considered Harmful."
Okay.
So Professor Bing Hansen is of the same school. He just would erupt if somebody wrote a go-to statement. Anyhow, so he changed the project. I got this new project. I had to implement Pascal subset on IBM 360. But this time it's different because the compiler was already written in Pascal. So all that I needed to do is to put the compiler through the Pascal compiler on the IBM 360 and produce the Pascal S compiler, which the students could use. To make life a little more complicated for myself, I had studied context-free languages, context-sensitive languages, and all of that as part of my compiler class. We had not really studied recursive descent compiler. The professor had only mentioned it in passing. There's a recursive descent is another way of doing compilations. This bloody Pascal S compiler, recursive descent compiler. So it was good that I learned that because now I knew exactly what recursive descent was. But then, you have not studied anything about it, right? So in any case, the story ends in a good way. Namely, I was able to finish the compilation and told him that, and he was satisfied. He tried a couple of test cases in terms of the, whatever programming he wanted to teach. He also taught CS 101 himself.
Okay.
Even though he's a full professor, head of the department, that's how he conducted himself. So he did that, so everything was good. But as I reflected on the whole experience, I decided not to continue with him. Maybe that was a mistake, but anyhow, I did that. Plus, also, I think it was, he would only give assistantship to students after the first year. He would not give it immediately.
Okay.
Right? And even though I had gone there as the Government of India scholarship, in the process, what had happened was I liked to be in a teaching assistantship role. So I took a teaching assistantship position in the mathematics department. And so effectively, I put a pause on the scholarship money. So I was on my own because of that. And if I somehow felt that I don't remember now clearly, but somehow felt that it would not be a smart idea to continue with pursuing cancer. And even though I would have, looking back, if I have to live my life again, I would have done that.
Okay.
But you don't get to live life for more than once.
Yeah.
So I went to a different professor who worked in the artificial intelligence arena, and there.
What year was this, sir?
This would be 1977, 78.
In 77, a professor working in artificial intelligence.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, he focused on subject, certain subset as image understanding. I mean, these days, artificial intelligence is immediately neural nets, right?
Yeah.
No, those days, neural nets were simply not in the picture.
Okay.
Image understanding was the focus of this particular group of professors. So, because they had considerable funding from Advanced Research Project Agency, ARPA, I felt somehow that would be the right thing for me to do. And the first, I would say, 1 year was really good. I was able to, I programmed, if you get an image, in those days the image is only 512 pixel by 512 pixels, okay, not much more. And also, I don't think they were color pictures, only black and white pictures, okay. So anyhow, we used to get aerial photographs of, for example, airports, and the expectation was you identify anything that is linear in that picture and summarize the content.
Okay. So that was the problem statement given to you.
Correct.
Okay.
And the programming I did was, I had to experiment between. You had to use 3x3 matrix or 4x4 or 5x5 or stuff like that. I don't remember what I ended up doing, but somehow whatever I did was good enough to be published in refereed journals.
Oh, wow.
I mean, along with my professor, of course. It was not all by myself, because so that was good. So I thought the life is wonderful now. I got a published article. I got to do the programming. What else can we expect? However, what happened after that was that whatever I proposed as a PhD thesis, I did it probably 3 different things. Okay. Simply would not be considered sufficient for this professor. So I spent nearly 2 years doing that. After which I somehow came to the conclusion that it's probably not a good idea to continue like this forever, because I didn't see any light at the end of the tunnel, as they say. Right? So, so I decided, I told my professor that I would move on. Of course, I had to line up a job before I did that.
Okay.
Right? And I got several jobs, but I decided to go to Silicon Valley.
After making this tough decision, you moved to Silicon Valley. Could you tell us more about your experience working in Silicon Valley? I'm sure a lot of our listeners would be eager to hear about it.
I joined a company called Advanced Microcomputers. There I was a systems programmer, and the goal for that company was to make microcomputers with Unix-like operating system, not Unix,
Okay.
but Unix-like. That operating system was called THOTH, T-H-O-T-H.
Okay.
Like the Egyptian god.
Huh?
The Egyptian god. Thought.
Oh, that I don't know. It's Egyptian or Greek, I don't know. But anyhow, that god that it was not very helpful, that god. because about a year later, the management of the company shut the project,
Okay.
canceled the company. So I was left on the streets to find a job again. So I think now looking back, its problem was that it was not Unix. It was Unix like. Like is not good enough. It's got to be Unix, right? So anyhow, so that was, I think, the problem. So what happened then? Then a couple of things happened. I was able to get jobs. Within 2 weeks, I got some 3 jobs.
Okay.
It's a question of deciding what to go for.
Right.
So, I mean, with this experience with advanced microcomputers, meaning the company is shutting down in 1 year, this time I said, of all the 3 companies, let me see what is the largest company I got, largest in terms of revenue or whatever. So I joined Rome Computers.
Okay.
Rome, actually, I think it's probably Rome mil-spec computers. They did computers for militaries only. Yeah. And the problem that I would solve was at that time there was a new programming language called Ada.
Okay.
And the Department of Defense of the United States would not touch a computer unless it had a Ada compiler.
Okay.
So this company, therefore, had to get the Ada compiler. Otherwise, their computers would not sell. So I went to a group that did Ada compilers. Where Ada compilers, these days you have this, what is this, Artifactory, right? In those days, there was no Artifact. So what you did have, you had a Ada compiler and then some peripheral tools to supplement the compiler. So I worked on the tools. I didn't work on the compiler. There's a lot of tools. I mean, like, for example, in terms of megabytes of compiled code, the environmental component was much higher than the compiler component. So they said, okay, you will be the tech leader for the environment group.
Okay.
So you do all that, make sure that all the tools are properly built and so on. That was good. That was a good 2 years that I spent there. But once you are in Silicon Valley, I don't know about here, but certainly if you are in Silicon Valley, you will definitely get exposed to the startup thinking.
Right.
Yeah.
You cannot go anywhere without hearing about this startup or that startup.
Yeah. I think even Bangalore is sort of transitioning into that.
Yes. These days it is like that.
Yeah.
But when we studied, there was no such thing, right? So anyhow, that is one important thing that happened. And the second thing that happened at the same time, that I got introduced to my future wife,
Okay.
who was at UVCE at that time.
Okay. So you both met here or in the
No, we didn't meet. Also all remote. We met only a few days before we got to wed.
Okay, I see.
But
What did your wife study here?
she studied electrical engineering.
Okay.
She was in the semester program.
Uh-huh.
I was in the integrated program. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So anyhow, we did, those days there was no video conference, right?
Uh-huh.
So as a grad student, I mean, I was not a grad student, but still it was not easy for me to afford too many phone calls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we did whatever we did. We used to write letters to each other. So that's probably like 2 years.
Okay.
Long distance romance.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Anyhow, those are the two things. So what happened after the first job, or rather the second job in Silicon Valley, it's a startup, and he got introduced to my future wife. So we eventually got married and so on. And then, one fine day we sat together, my wife and I explained to her that I need to experiment with my career in a startup. And she, I guess, understood that. And so we agreed that she would not be screwing around with startups. I would. she would be in a more stable kind of a job. So that's what happened all the way through, essentially. So, but before I could do that, I got a call one day from uh, a startup entrepreneur.
Okay.
That was luck, good luck, right? I wanted to go into a startup. He's a startup entrepreneur who is calling me.
So at that point, you were already doing your job.
Yeah, I was at mid-spec computers, right?
Right.
I was doing the
And you received this call.
Huh? Yeah, I received the call. So, I mean, you ask for something, you will really get it.
Right.
So I did go there. I interviewed, and they liked my background and stuff. But now the system programming would be to build the necessary embedded software for networking computers.
Okay.
So in other words, it's no longer operating system, no compilers, but write software, real-time software for networking of computers. And in particular, what you know as internet today, TCP/IP.
Yeah.
So that's what I got into. Now, however, there was already a group that was building TCP/IP software. So I joined a group that would manage TCP/IP networks. Okay. So that was a fairly good. How many years did I do that? I did it nearly 7 years there.
Okay.
And eventually the company got bought by Novell. And after about 7 years is when I said, okay, I saw, for example, the founders. I don't remember now. I think the founders, they both, on the day of the company going public, they both had their value was like $5 or $6 million. That's how much stock they had. Okay. And they sold some stock on that day, and then they got my boss, software founder. He showed us all a $600,000 check.
Okay.
That he got. So anyhow, that was very exciting and all that. So after 7 years, then I said, okay, where is my $600,000?
Yeah.
So that's I went for a startup. This time I would be the key person. The startup was already there. It was kind of a spin-off from Hewlett Packard. But they wanted a software guy. That would be me. That was good. That was like a good opportunity. I was prepared for that. I produced a lot of, late night work and so on. But anyhow, since my wife and I had already agreed that I would be the one who would do the startup and she would not, complain.
Yeah.
So I did that. I was in that company for some 6 to 7 years. But once again, what happened here was that the technology that the company pursued. Remember the Unix like?
Right.
This ended up being a similar story. Meaning that the entire world is going switched Ethernet.
Okay.
And the company was pursuing a variant of Ethernet called isochronous Ethernet.
I see.
Okay, and the justification that the company gave, and I fell for it, was that when it comes to voice and video communication, the signals should be isochronous. Isochronous meaning at regular intervals.
Right.
Whereas if it's regular Ethernet, a packet may go there and another packet may go many milliseconds later. There's no regularity.
Yeah.
So it was argued that if you want to support voice and video on a public network, you will need something like isochronous Ethernet, and I fell for it. Now we all know today that voice is over the internet. Nobody even notices any issue. I mean, like you make Zoom calls, Google Meet.
Yeah.
They're all on the internet.
Right.
There's nothing isochronous about it.
Yeah.
Meaning underneath.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, there is isochronicity in terms of you're able to see the other person, without jitter and all that. But in any case, So after, I don't know, 78 years of working on this isosceles ether thing, it became clear that he was not going to go anywhere.
Okay.
So I moved on. What did I do? If I moved on and joined Cisco, that would be wonderful. I didn't do that. I would do something better.
Okay.
There was a company at that time called Four Systems.
Okay.
They promoted a technology called ATM, Asynchronous Transfer Mode.
This something better, it was a new startup with a new idea.
That means even though data will be packetized, it will be the packet size is so small. I think it's like something less than probably 100 bytes or something. That the weakness of Ethernet would be avoided. That was the logic.
Right.
That appealed to me. Okay, maybe this is the right thing to do. So I joined that company.
Okay.
But as soon as I joined, not as soon as, but after I joined, that particular technology, asynchronous transfer mode, was going down the tubes. So it's like a Unix-like isochronous Ethernet, the ATM also down the tubes. So I said I had to do something else now. So what was that something else? It turned out that another call came.
Okay.
This time, it was opportunity to build Ethernet and Sonnet together in one box.
Okay.
I concluded maybe this will work out, and I joined that, and we raised quite a bit of money on that, $72 million. But unfortunately, it was when was this? This is the 1998.
Okay.
I made the switch to this startup. And then very soon thereafter, the Y2K came. And Y2K did a lot of things. Of course, there's a lot of people came back to India and all that. That is one thing. But the other thing was, it was also accompanied by what is known as the telecom winter.
Okay.
That means that the telecommunication companies, they were building up so fast, but suddenly there were no takers. So all the building that they did had to be somehow salvaged.
So the supply didn't match the demand.
Correct. And this company, Mayan Networks, that I joined, would do Sonnet and Ethernet together, had a deal with telecom equipment provider called Nortel Networks.
Okay.
That company doesn't exist anymore. It went. Okay, so before they went, they told us, Mayan Networks, that they will not be able to buy the equipment from us.
Yeah.
So the result was that this company that I joined with $72 million investment, capital investment, laid off a whole bunch of people with only like 50 people, that somehow they wanted to make sure that they would try to sell it to Cisco or something, the intellectual property. That didn't happen also. So I went through a considerable difficult period at that time. And then after about maybe, I don't remember now, maybe 6 months or something, jobless, right? The only good news was that my wife was working. And then I joined another company. This time it was not a startup. Done with all the startups, right?
Okay.
And this company would build software stacks and make it available to equipment manufacturers. So I was with that company. They used to build not only just TCP/IP, but then also many surrounding software protocols, border gateway protocol, SNMP, the whole bit. So I was there for like maybe, and then I also, in that company, I also got an opportunity. I was no longer doing software programming. I had already become an individual away from everyday 9 to 5 coding. Yeah. So I did some, they wanted to promote 100 gigabit Ethernet because, building protocol software for 100 gigabit Ethernet required very careful crafting of the software because there's not much time.
Yeah.
A new packet will come. So your processing will be really fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we did that, and eventually even this company it got acquired by a Japanese company. Uh, that was big because they had on feature phones. They created software for communication. But unfortunately, even though it did very well, I forget the name of that company, I mean, the software. It did very well in Japan, and so we're all very excited about it. But it's about the same time iPhone came along. iPhone came along and killed that other thing. So even this company had to, reduce its ambitions. So as part of the reduction of ambition, I got laid off.
Okay.
So now I had to really think through what has happened in my career, right? It's not as much as I thought it would be. So I said, okay, I don't need to stick to system programming. I'll do anything.
I see. So what were your thoughts at that juncture?
Okay, so what is that next thing I did? I found a program manager position with Adrian Technologies. Adrian Technologies is a life sciences instrumentation company. Well, in the group which I joined would be life sciences instrumentation. They also did what is that? Genomic analysis and all of that. I didn't go into that. I only got into the instrumentation portion. So anyhow, there the goal was to build an instrument that is useful in life sciences laboratories. In particular, they want to automate transfer of liquids, microliter. Can you imagine microliter?
Yeah. It's really small.
Right. So you had to be able to transmit or transfer 1 microliter from here to here, one pipette to another pipette, and so on. So all of that needs to be controlled by software, obviously. So that was done. But then this was a new kind of industry. I went there as an engineer essentially. I was not the one who thought of the product. Somebody else did. I was just an engineer, program manager, but nevertheless an engineer in the product. And so what happened? The economics of this product was not going to be acceptable to the industry, to the marketplace. So because each one would cost about $300,000 to $500,000.
Okay. Wow, that's a huge sum. Yeah.
Yeah. So, there are not many takers. So what happened so I got the boot first because, I was only doing peripheral management. So I got the boot, I guess. I mean, even if you were my manager, you would send me home first. You could not send others home.
Right.
Yeah. So, but while I was doing this, I got exposed to, thanks to my UVCE training, I learned in parallel agile methodology. This is learning by myself. There was no class or anything. Maybe there was a class, but you can't do a job and go to a class, and it's too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I learned that, but once I got out of this, I learned enough of it, and I took a certification exam. So I got certified as a Scrum Master.
Okay.
So agile methodology, Scrum Master. Now we are talking 2003, 2004, or maybe even later. So I joined. Thanks to friendships in the Silicon Valley, I joined one of my friends from Novell. He started a company, and I joined him. And I was with that company until the pandemic hit.
Okay.
Pandemic hit, and the business of the company was a little shaky.
Yeah.
And so we parted. I left. At that time, that is 2020, right? That's when the pandemic. Yeah. 2020.
Yeah, 2020 March.
February, March. I was here in January.
Oh, okay.
but we were back in California in January. But in March is when it's really, got everything to stand still. Everywhere in the world. So I decided to take some time off, and in the meantime, my daughter got a baby. Okay. So I'm a grandfather. So I spent quite a bit of time tending to the little one, and in fact, even before I came here, that was my full-time occupation. Okay. So there is the story here.
So they stay in Bangalore. Who? Your daughter?
No. My daughter lives in California.
California. All right.
Yeah. My daughter, I have two children. One is a daughter, lives in California. Son lives also in California. Okay. My daughter she works in the IT industry. She works for Block. Okay. My son is a biomedical engineer. He works in San Diego for a startup. Okay, so that is the conclusion to my career until today.
Okay. We feel a lot of ebbs and wounds. It's something there is a lot of experience there. Yeah. A lot of learning and a lot of experience. It's not something
I want to put for the question. I mean, sir, you've worked across sectors. You worked across technologies. You've learned a lot of things along the way. Was like constantly learn, like what's your approach to learning? Because clearly, to make that switch when you're already in a career in a well-defined stream,
it needs
and then it needs a lot of effort, right? So what is your personal approach to learning?
Its personal approach is fundamentals based. Okay. Let's put it that way. Like, for example, we learned at UVCE, we learned differential calculus and integral calculus by first principles, in the sense that by no matter what function you give me, I can give you differential coefficient or its integral by logical first principle analysis. I could do that. I think that stood in good stead because I tend to approach everything like that. Anything I do has to have some kind of fundamental clarity. I have to have that. Otherwise, I won't even go near that.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us on this episode, Ramesh. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you and learn from your vast experience working in the Silicon Valley. We wish you all the best for all your future endeavors. And a huge thank you to all our listeners for tuning into this episode. Do feel free to reach out to us on Instagram at VisionUVCE or drop us an email on campus@uvcega.org. We shall meet again for the next episode. Stay tuned to UVCE Chronicles.